The year was 1993. I was a young man eager to make my mark in the world of mental health. Fresh out of graduate school, I landed a job at Meadow Creek, a residential facility nestled in the quiet countryside. I thought I was ready for anything. I was wrong. Some patients stay with you, etched in your memory. Marion Duchene was one of them. He was an enigma wrapped in silence and shrouded in mystery. He was an elective mute, refusing to speak a word. His story, or rather the lack thereof, was a puzzle that I and the rest of the staff were desperate to solve. Marion Duchene was a man of routine. He would wake at the same time each day, eat his meals in silence, and spend hours staring out of the window into the vast emptiness beyond. His eyes, a piercing blue, held a depth of sadness that was both captivating and unsettling. The staff at Meadow Creek tried everything to get Marion to talk. Art therapy, music therapy, even pet therapy. All were met with the same stoic silence. We yearned to understand the stories trapped behind his lips, the pain that kept him a prisoner in his own world. Then, one day, Marion Duchene vanished. He was gone, disappeared without a trace, leaving behind nothing but an empty bed and a silence that was deafening. The staff at Meadow Creek was baffled. How could a man seemingly so detached from the world simply disappear? The police were called, an investigation was launched, but Marion Duchene was gone, swallowed whole by the silence that had defined him. The mystery of his disappearance became a dark cloud hanging over Meadow Creek. His room remained untouched, a shrine to the man who wasn't there. His chair, perpetually turned towards the window, stood as a silent sentinel guarding the secrets that he had taken with him. We searched for clues, for any sign of where he might have gone, but found nothing. Marion's silence, once a source of frustration, was now a deafening absence, a void that seemed to amplify the anxieties of everyone around him. The memory of Marion Duchene, the silent man who had haunted the halls of Meadow Creek, began to fade, replaced by new faces, new stories, new mysteries. 10 years passed. 10 years since Marion Duchene vanished from Meadow Creek. I had moved on, both geographically and emotionally, taking on new challenges, facing new demons. The memory of Marion, however, lingered, a faded photograph in the back of my mind. Then one day the phone rang. It was Dr. Miller, the head psychiatrist at Meadow Creek. "Phil," he said, "you're not going to believe this. Marion Duchene is back." I was stunned. The next day I found myself driving back to Meadow Creek. The familiar scenery both comforting and unsettling. The silence that had once been so deafening now seemed charged with anticipation. Upon my arrival, I learned that Marion had been found wandering the outskirts of town, disoriented and confused. He seemed like a ghost of his former self, lost in a world that no longer recognized him. He was thinner, his hair whiter, but his eyes held the same haunting sadness that had always been there, now amplified by years of suffering. He hadn't spoken a word since his return, his silence more profound than any words could ever be, not to the staff, not to the police, not even to his family, who had long given up hope of ever seeing him again. Their relief was mixed with a deep, unspoken fear of what he had endured. His sister, a woman weathered by years of uncertainty and grief, sat by his bedside, her hand clasped tightly in his. She had spent countless nights praying for his return, and now that he was back, she didn't know how to reach him. She looked at me with a mixture of hope and despair, her eyes pleading for answers that I didn't have. The pain of not knowing where he had been or what he had gone through was etched deeply into her face. The weight of their reunion, the years of unspoken words and unanswered questions, hung heavy in the air. It was as if time had stopped, leaving them suspended in a moment of unbearable tension. The silence that had once been Marion's prison now seemed to encompass the entire room, a tangible barrier between him and the world he had left behind. It was a silence filled with the echoes of lost time and missed opportunities. Through it all, Marion remained silent, his eyes fixed on some distant point, his face an unreadable mask. It was as if he was still wandering, lost in a place only he could see, a place that held the secrets of his long absence. The Marion Duchene who returned was but a shadow of the man who had vanished a decade prior. He was withdrawn, his silence more profound than before. His eyes, once filled with a haunting sadness, now seemed vacant, as if whatever had taken root in his mind had hollowed him out from the inside. He moved with a slow, deliberate grace, his body seemingly disconnected from his mind. He ate sparingly, his meals consumed with a mechanical precision that was both fascinating and disturbing. His sleep was plagued by nightmares, his cries echoing through the halls, a chilling reminder of the torment that raged within him. We ran tests, conducted evaluations, consulted with specialists, but the answers remained elusive. Some whispered that he had been lost in the woods all those years, driven mad by isolation and exposure. Despite the challenges, I was determined to help Marion. His case was unlike any I had encountered before, and it demanded a level of dedication and empathy that tested my limits. I spent hours with him, reading to him from his favorite books, playing music that I thought might spark a memory, a feeling, anything. I chose stories that were rich with emotion, hoping to see a flicker of recognition in his eyes. I talked to him about his childhood, his family, his life before Meadow Creek, hoping to unearth a clue, a trigger that might break through the wall of silence he had built around himself. I asked about his happiest moments, his dreams, and even his fears. His silence was both a challenge and a source of fascination. It was a puzzle that I was determined to solve, a mystery that beckoned me to dig deeper. It spoke volumes about the complexities of the human mind, the resilience of the human spirit, and the profound mysteries that lie at the heart of our existence. Each silent moment was a testament to the battles fought within. I tried every therapeutic approach I knew, drawing on my years of experience, my knowledge of trauma, my understanding of the human psyche. I used art therapy, music therapy, and even guided meditation, hoping to find a key to unlock his silence. Each attempt, however, was met with the same stoic silence. It was as if my words and actions were swallowed by an invisible void. It was as if he were trapped within himself, a prisoner in his own mind, unable to communicate the horrors he had witnessed, the pain he had endured. His distant look told a story of its own, one that words could never fully capture. As the days turned into weeks, a sense of despair began to settle over me, creeping in like an uninvited guest that refused to leave. Marion's silence was a wall I couldn't seem to breach, a fortress guarding secrets I couldn't begin to comprehend. It was as if every attempt to communicate was met with an impenetrable barrier. The weight of his unspoken words, the mystery of his decade-long disappearance pressed down on me, threatening to crush me beneath the weight of it all. Each day, the burden grew heavier and the silence more deafening. I found myself questioning everything I thought I knew about psychology, about trauma, about the human capacity for healing. The textbooks and theories seemed inadequate, mere shadows of the complex reality I faced. Marion's silence was a stark reminder of the limitations of my knowledge, the vastness of the human experience, and the humbling realization that some wounds run too deep for even the most skilled hands to heal. It was a humbling experience, one that made me confront my own limitations. The walls of my office, once a sanctuary, began to feel like the walls of a prison, closing in on me, suffocating me with the weight of my own inadequacy. The space that once offered solace now felt like a cage. I found myself working later and later, poring over Marion's file, desperate for a clue, a breakthrough, anything that might shed light on the darkness that consumed him. The late nights became a routine, a desperate search for answers. My colleagues, sensing my frustration, offered words of encouragement, but their words rang hollow in my ears. Their well-meaning advice felt like empty platitudes, unable to pierce the fog of my despair. Then one evening, as I sat with Marion in the facility's garden, something shifted. The setting sun cast long shadows across the lawn, painting the world in hues of orange and purple. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves in the trees, creating a soothing symphony of sound. And for a brief moment, I saw a flicker of something in Marion's eyes. It was fleeting, almost imperceptible, but it was there. A spark of recognition, a glimmer of hope. He turned his head towards me, his gaze meeting mine for the first time in weeks. And then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the spark in Marion's eyes faded, replaced once again by the blankness that had become his trademark. The next morning I arrived at Meadow Creek to find the place in an uproar. Marion Duchene was gone, vanished again. This time, however, he left something behind. A single word, scrawled on the back of a drawing he'd made during art therapy. The word was dead. His disappearance this time was different. The drawing he left behind was a chilling self-portrait, rendered in stark black charcoal, and beneath the drawing, scrawled in a shaky hand, was the word that sent chills down my spine: dead. The case of Marion Duchene remains unsolved to this day. He was never found, his fate a mystery that continues to haunt me. The word dead scrawled on his drawing became a chilling epitaph for a life shrouded in enigma. Did he mean he was already dead inside, a prisoner of his own silence, or was it a premonition, a chilling prediction of his own demise? Marion's case taught me that sometimes the greatest insights come not from what is said, but from what is left unsaid. It taught me the importance of listening, not just with our ears, but with our hearts and minds. The memory of Marion Duchene, the man who spoke volumes in silence, continues to shape my work, my approach to therapy, and my understanding of the human condition. He is a constant reminder that sometimes the most profound truths are the ones that remain unspoken, the ones that linger in the silences.